Hello everybody, welcome to a Blake Scholar Magic video, and today we're going to be looking at a cEDH deck for Meria, the Scholar of Antiquity. I'll be kind of like honest about how I kind of evolved to this point in my kind of Magic experience and kind of the steps that have been taken to kind of get here. Meria was like the first commander that I really kind of, that was my very first commander I took to a commander night. I fell in love with this card just, with like kind of a standard, historic kind of background in MTG Arena. It just set off a lot of alarm bells in my head, like just like creating an abundance of mana. There was even card advantage built into it, and as well, just like an interesting commander to kind of get into. And that was my first one, and I did like big stompy stuff, and it was really fun. But now it's like over time, like, you kind of learn about cards as you like stay in the LGS, like, for instance, Winter Orb comes to mind. And, these kind of cards that are just extremely strong and not really accepted in like general or casual, like, command pods, just because it's just kind of restricts, players from playing the game in that manner. And that's pretty much the kind of gist of this. This deck has kind of gotten to be play tested to an extent. I say, because now on MTG Brawl, they're kind of been building a lot of more vintagey cards into the format. Like we have access to Ancient Tomb, Crop Rotation, Strip Mine. Those kind of decks are very oppressive. And of course, there's like lots of stack pieces to kind of, experience as well in that particular format. So I get access to Blood Moon, for instance. So overall, just like some really interesting kind of characteristics of Meria. They even have a Paradox engine in MTG Arena. I never really tested it out just because, it doesn't translate to EDH. That would actually be an amazing card for this deck and would really kind of set it over the top. It would probably make Urza really good, really, really good too in like a competitive format, and probably start taking some trophies, I can imagine. Just because you simply just win off of a Paradox engine. You just create like infinite mana and value. So I obviously that's kind of an interesting card, but we can get the job done in this particular format even without those. So I think we should just kind of just dive in. And I believe we're going to start off with fast mana, which is a very kind of important part of this format, and can kind of get you started. So let's kind of just, it looks nice. So Meria is a 3-costed commander, and red and green colors. Tap an untapped non-token artifact you control, add green. Tap 2 untapped non-token artifacts you control. Exile the top card of your library you may play it this turn. So for instance, you drop down a bunch of mana rocks. You can actually, instead of just tapping those for mana, you can just tap 2 down at a time to exile the top card of your library. So in that manner, you get like a lot of value. So let's just kind of dive in and just let it rip. So here's the Mox Diamond. So very obviously kind of one of those staple-y cards for cEDH. What's interesting about the Mox Diamond in this particular one is that it's definitely a better accompaniment than like, for instance, a Chrome Mox, because a Mox Diamond just will simply have you discard a land card, which is kind of more readily available than, say, like an artifact card, which a Chrome Mox needs. So this is a really exceptional card. Simply exchange or discard a land card from your hand, and you can plop this down, and then you can add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Play this ability as a mana source. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And here's the aforementioned Chrome Mox. So I'll be fully transparent. Some of these are proxies. The first 2 you've seen are proxies, but I'll let you know the ones that aren't proxies, but this one is definitely a proxy. This one's actually more attainable than a Mox Diamond, which is like $600, I think. A Chrome Mox is like about $100, but this simply will just have you exile a non-artifact, non-land card from your hand. You say, Blake, you have so many artifacts in your deck. Like, how are you going to do this? Well, we kind of get clever with like some multi-face land cards. Those are like cards that you can exile that have like a front side that's not a land, they're a spell, like a sorcery or instant. In that manner, you can actually just exile those and then get that color that you need for it. Otherwise, we can just play it for 0 and just tap it for mana with Meria on the battlefield, which is fine too. So, but you can get to hot starts when you have like turn 1 Meria. So This is not a proxy. I got hold of this when I was lucky. It like kind of doubled in price. So a Mox Opal is just like a really sweet card. And we do play an abundance of zero drops. It really helps set this off earlier than not. And we definitely want it to be set off like, turn 1, turn 2. We don't want to like have it too much. We don't really want to have it sitting around for too long. So a 0 mana legendary artifact here. Add 1 mana of any color. Activate this ability only if you control 3 or more artifacts. Here's Mox Amber. Just another amazing card for this. Meria, it just loves zero-costed artifacts in general. They're just so easily accessible. They bring us card advantage, which is kind of ridiculous. So you really want to favor those, like even over like regular mana dorks. You want to kind of like, it's perfect. Like these 0 mana artifacts offer so much value in the sense they'll accelerate you to Meria faster, and then you'll get more card advantage because you simply tap these down for more cards. So when you're not using them for mana. Here's Paradise Mantle. This will actually turn Meria into a mana rock, which is crazy. So it's just a sweet 0 mana artifact. We can just tap this down for mana with Meria and simply turn Meria into an artifact by, this will actually, what I say, pay for itself. Like you can have Meria on the battlefield and you can put a Paradise Mantle down and simply tap this down with Meria's ability and then slap it onto Meria. So it's like basically cost neutral. And that's the thing about Meria is that she can go mana positive in certain circumstances. And a lot of the artifacts will actually offer like mana positive like interactions too in some manner. And we'll kind of talk about that. Lotus Petal is just like that fast mana rock. But also we don't have to use it for fast mana. We can simply just have it as a 0 drop. It's so versatile in that way. Really dangerous card for us. Really, really exciting stuff. Mana Vault. So this is the card that this will just produce 3 colorless for 1. It won't untap, unless you pay for 4 mana. So it will take damage. You'll take some damage to it, but I just love these 1 mana, ritual effects. They're so good for us. And like there's even cards like Manifold Key, which just kind of like make these even so much better. Here's Soul Ring, just that OG like amazing 1 drop. They'll produce 2 colorless mana. You love to see it. And then aforementioned, this would be the Manifold Key. And what's cool about Manifold Key is that you can pay, I believe, 1 in a tap, and you can untap a target artifact. So that'd be very cool for like our mana vaults. We'd actually go mana positive in that manner. And also for another card I don't have yet, I would have to probably get a proxy, guys, because it's like $384, but the Grim Monolith. So that's also another card that kind of fits in with that Manifold Key. Similarly, that's a 2 mana artifact, and we'll tap for 3 colorless, and you can choose to pay 4 to untap it during your upkeep and kind of have it available. Otherwise, you can have a card like Manifold Key that kind of just works into that, and you kind of net some mana along the way. Very interesting stuff in general. Price Statue, like I actually opted over this, like just from looking at, this could also be like a talisman, but I like it for us because we do have goblins that sacrifice artifacts. And I like the fact that it will kind of get value from being sacrificed. It's just like a nice kind of, works in with our grinding cards, that like to sacrifice artifacts and get value from them leaving. And this one just will get a mega value from entering and leaving. They'll create a treasure, and Meria can tap it for mana. So it's kind of like a really sweet bomb in that manner. And then we still play some, non-creature spells. Because we have cards like Thorn of the Animist, and Ragavan can just get in. Like we can dash the sucker in, like tax the table down. That's kind of the whole point, is like to kind of be obnoxious to the table and just like have like evasive creatures that kind of get in and kind of get us value or mana in that manner. Of course, we'll still play the Bop. Fantastic 1 mana, mana dork here for add 1 mana of any color for 1 green. The Delight Halfling for some uncounterability. That's a little bit of longevity for us. And the Cobra. Yeah, we love the Lotus Cobra. It's like probably one of the coolest mana dorks. And just a really cool amount of value with like our fetch lands in general. So just love the Lotus Cobra, really. And now let's talk about like our stacks pieces. So this is the start of the stacks, and it's the nastiest stuff. Like it really is. There's nothing really kind of like this. And so the Vexing Bauble is interesting. You're going to want to kind of dump your hand, and then you're going to want to play like a card like Vexing Bauble. So whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. One and tap, sacrifice Vexing Bauble, draw a card. It has that kind of fail safe and that built into it. Like if you want to go off with your, try to go off with your hand, or just keep it in place. Like it's really up to you. You know, if you need that value, maybe you need a card. You know, it's really kind of, you know, up to the circumstance. But yeah, you can just sacrifice this if you really need to get into some of your value that you have in your hand. So that are 0 drops. But otherwise, 0 cost spells will just be simply countered. So whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. Really interesting, huh? Here's the Meekstone, and I was like debating of this having this as a thumbnail because it is such a cool old card, and it kind of just shows like the character of cEDH. It's like these obscure cards that, you know, have a fit into certain decks, and that's how Magic is still now. I was just talking about this card, Reap the Past, and it's like a very obscure like Gruul card in from Modern Horizons, and it's so good in Roshin. This is a card that's just like amazing in this Meria deck. Like any creature with power greater than 2 may not be untapped as normal during the untap phase. Just kind of like a really kind of, you know, nasty card for some of our, you know, maybe more over the top kind of creatures we are playing against that have power 2 or more. They simply just won't be untapped. And we don't really care about Meria tapping or not, really. It doesn't really matter for the most part. So Meekstone is just a cool one-costed colorless spell that you can just, you know, utilize for that mana. We can, you know, get value off of it in that manner and just have more stacks. So these are just more taxes for our opponents to get through. Grafdigger's Cage. And so another shout out to Shelby at Commander Games. Yeah, I go there like, that's my predominant store I go to. I get to go out there probably like once every 3 or 4 months. The summers are a little bit better, you know, like sometimes I'll just kind of spend like a day or two over there. But yeah, like I'll come down there for like the day and kind of get busy, like pick people's brains, like what they think about like the competitive formats. Like I would say my experience is still noob-like because I haven't played enough games. Like I've played a few more competitive, you know, games or pods before, but I've never played in like a local cEDH tournament. So that would be like the next step to kind of like see what's going on. And like that's my favorite part, but also kind of the most headachy part too. But I think I've definitely put enough reps in on Brawl where I have like a good feeling of the cards that I want to use and that are good. So Grafdigger's Cage is a very interesting card. It's going to basically stop cards from entering the battlefield from graveyards or libraries. In addition, players can't cast cards in graveyards or libraries. Shards of Narsil. This is the Thorn of Animist. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. This is like really the bread and butter of the taxes. Like where can you get through it yourself? And I'd say half the time yes for this deck, maybe half the time not. But it also depends on like, are we on the play? Like there's so many circumstances like, you know, that kind of dictate like kind of how well this deck functions. But I could imagine dropping the Thorn of Amethyst really, you know, quickly and kind of going to town with Meria and just like kind of being obnoxious to our opponents that are like wanting to play non-creature spells. Even though we do have an abundance of them, like it's just like, can we be like the victor of this, like kind of more mentally kind of warfare type of thing? In my experience, the most hard type of stacks pieces to get through are like the ones that only let you cast like 1 spell a turn. Ooh, those are just disgusting. Like those white creature spells, those are really tough. But we're hoping that we can kind of get under that with our speed here, you know, with some of these spells. This is that one spell that will definitely help us get under. This would probably be like a card that you definitely be seeking out for this deck. So a player may not untap more than 1 land during the untap phase of each of his or her turns. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to play your Winter Orb and let it kind of roll around to your last opponent's turn. And as they move to their end step, you're simply just going to tap this down with Meria. And then it will all untap like so during your untap step. And you won't have that tax. You know, you'll be able to untap all your lands as this is untapping. So as long as this remains tapped, your opponents will only be able to untap 1 land. Oh, God, it's disgusting. During the untap phase of each of his or her turns. So that's Winter Orb, and that's kind of like our really S tier card. Collector oof, activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated. We say, oh, Blake, but how are you going to tap your mana? Like, your artifacts all like produce mana, and now you can't activate that ability. Well, Meria has a passive ability, so that's what makes her kind of interesting. It's actually her that's tapping down the artifacts for mana, not the artifacts tapping themselves. So that's the passive ability if you're kind of curious about that. So we can still produce mana, we can still exile the cards we want, we just won't be able to tap them by themselves. Meria will have to do it. So oof is great for us. Also, No Rod is also very nice as well. Players can't play any artifact abilities requiring activation costs. Similarly, what an amazing card. It's actually just perfect for us because we can just use it for all Meria's gizmos. Cursed Totem, activated abilities of creatures can't be activated, like your Kinnons of the world that are just super annoying, like Nigella. All those like activated abilities of creatures just get shut down, which is really interesting. So yeah, there's that. Conqueror's Flail. The equipped creature gets 1/1 for each color among permanents you control. As long as Conqueror's Flail is attached to a creature, your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. It has that kind of that Myrel kind of thing where like we kind of get like that freedom to do what the hell we want during our turn, which is nice. And it's an artifact. Static Orb, similarly, kind of like a Winter Orb, right? A Static Orb is untapped. Players can't untap more than 2 permanents during their untap steps, so that just doesn't hit just lands, it hits permanents too. So these are like very important, the Winter Orb, Static Orb type of effects where they'll affect our opponents, but with a Meria intact, we'll be safe. So similarity to Storage Matrix is like that too. As long as Storage Matrix is untapped, each player chooses artifact, creature, and land during his or her untap step. That player can untap only permanents of the chosen type. It's obnoxious. It's really ill in Trinisphere. So Trinisphere, as long as this untap, then all things less than 3 mana will cost 3 mana in total. So like 1 mana spell, 0 mana spells will cost 3 instead. This is definitely the big test for our deck. Is like, can we drop a Trinisphere? Can we get through it? And perhaps when we kind of are ready to combo off, maybe have our Winter Orb or a Static Orb kind of set up, can we actually tap this down and give us the chance to kind of storm off with our lower costed spells? That'd be kind of the trick for that. So that's Trinisphere. And this is kind of like all the, just theory, like I'm going to be testing this like probably at a Saturday soon at Commander Games. And either Saturday, I think Saturday or Sunday, they do their competitive tournament. So yeah, it's just fun. I mean, it's competitive, but people are just ready to like throw down. We're ready. The Obnixilis gets in there. You see all sorts of sweet decks. The Thrasios and whatever the hell his name is, the little Goblin do Ragrock or whatever. Yeah, all those really sweet decks. You know who I've kind of experienced in Brawl, which was really nasty, guys, was I think it was the Vile Smasher and Thrasios. That is a nasty color combination. I did not like playing against that because they had like the kind of Simic kind of rampiness, plus they had like just really the Vile Smasher is just a really nasty card in general, like just how much damage it does when you cast spells. And it's just an awful color combination to play against, I'll say. Strip Mine is just ever present in Brawl right now. So if you really want to get kind of flavored into the, if you're on Arena and you're like, well, what's, EDH about? What's like kind of cEDH? There's a little taste. You can kind of taste it a little bit now. So you can kind of get into it. Here's some really nasty stacks pieces. Magus of the Moon, non-basic lands or mountains. Fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, this is going to hit us to an extent, but we can produce mana with Meria. We can produce green mana, so we can get through this stuff. So, like, this is just going to hit our, like, BANT players really bad. Those other players that kind of, like, are, reliant on those kind of colors that really don't play a lot of basics in general. So these are just going to be fantastic. Magus of the Moon, Blood Moon. Tangle Wire is the one I'm still going to be getting. That's not too bad. It's like $11 card, so I can get a real version of that. But Tangle Wire is like a really, really crazy card and I hope if anyone wants to chime in, I believe I understand how it works, is that you basically have fading counters on it, and you have to tap an artifact, creature, or land for each fading counter on that particular card. So really, really strong card, just really like slows down like things in general. So I assume that that's going to be probably the most oppressive card to play against, but it kind of gives us a way to kind of catch up and kind of draw some cards because we do exhaust so many cards, kind of like, kind of glass cannon-y. So yeah, I'm curious about Tango Wire. I'll look in a little bit more of that, but it just kind of seems like an appropriate card that I want to definitely kind of play in this deck. Here's Smokestack. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a suit counter on Smokestack. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a permanent for each suit counter on Smokestack. Very cool card. We're just gonna like start having people start sacrificing. So we're gonna choke them out, and then we're gonna put a card like Smokestack on the battlefield, and they're gonna start having to sacrifice things. We will sacrifice things themselves, but we will just be in a more value-oriented position. Here's Bergi, God of Storytelling. Now we're into like our combo section. So this is a combo-esque card. This will let us basically produce mana as we have more casted spells being casted. This along with can also be turned on its backside for a pretty cool artifact that you can get value from. But we'll probably predominantly be using it for the mana production we get. So this along with like a artifact reducer such as a Foundry Inspector, artifact spells you cost 1 less to cast, or Semblance Anvil, which will you'll exile like an artifact card from your hand, and those artifacts will now cost 2 less to cast. And these can conjunction with an Experimental Frenzy, which lets you play cards from the top of your library but not from your hand any longer, and a card such as Mystic Forward, which similarly will let you play colorless spells and artifact spells from the top of your library, and a card such as Sensei's Divining Top, which is a 1-costed card. Basically, we're going to reduce this or net mana with like a Bergi by casting this, and then we're simply going to return it to the top of our library with that. Draw a card, then put Sensei's Divining Top on top of its owner's library, and then simply just put this right back on top. And then we can repeat the process over and over again. So what do we do with like all those like infinite casts, right? Like what do we do with it, or numerous casts? Well, we can play a card like Altar of the Brood. So whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. I thought that'd be kind of an interesting one where you're just like basically, milling out your opponents in that manner. It's just like kind of an obnoxious card, right? Like if you just get into that kind of situation, you're just gonna, even if you like, Sensei's Divining Top yourself, you can just get into that situation where you just pass the turn to your opponents, and likely, I believe, you could just mill them out at one by one. So I think that would probably be, it kind of makes sense to me in my head. But I'm also like curious too, like what you all think, if that sounds like it would be mathematically correct, because, I am still learning these decks and like learning the interactions. So let's see. Draw a card, so I'd simply be able to cast this, tap it, I would draw and put this to the top of my deck. So in a way, I'm kind of milling myself in that manner too, for each instance of this. It is so interesting. I'm sure there's like, there's also ways to go about this. Like we have so many things that create multiple permanents. Even that prize statue kind of does it too. So I'm pretty confident we can kind of make the altar work in our favor. I do believe so, guys. I have a feeling we will make it work. Here's the Aetherflex Reservoir. Whenever you cast this is like the more dependable way, right? Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn, and pay 50 life. Aetherflex Reservoir deals 50 damage to any target. So yeah, about like, 30 redundant casts with your Sensei's Divining Top will net you about, 200 life or so. So then in that manner, you could just shoot your opponents in the face with this, and that would be the game. So that's kind of the combo-esque. How do we get a hold of this combo? Underworld Breach is a really nice one where basically we're filling up our graveyard. We're being able to kind of regurgitate value and search for our combo pieces. So this, along with like a grinding station, is really good. So what Grinding Station can do is it could sacrifice an artifact. Target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Whenever an artifact comes into play, you may untap the Grinding Station. So in this manner, the combo is like a card like such as Chromatic Star, And with Meria, it's really nice too because you can net mana too along the way. So that's a net positive portion of Meria. So basically, imagine you just tapping this down for mana, and then you sacrifice it to the grinding station. This card will go to your graveyard, and you'll draw. And it just kind of like you can, and with the breach, you can kind of like regurgitate, this kind of over and over to a degree. There's also a really sweet one, probably the coolest one I'd say, like to kind of keep the combo up, is the experimental synthesizer. And now the other reason why it keeps the combo up is because each time you do the sacrifice of the artifact, it's going to put 3 cards into the graveyard. So you just keep being able to do the breach because that meets the criteria for the 3 other cards, as you basically have to forge those out each time you cast another card. So you're just kind of exchanging those cards and you're just creating a loop. And really, the really cool cards, I honestly think these are just so valuable. It's just like the Chromatic Star is very good at doing this. And then especially the synthesizer, because you can drop this down, it's going to exile a card, and then you're going to sacrifice with a grinding station, you're going to exile another card that you can play. So you get like even more value than even like a Chromatic Star. You get more looks. It's really cool stuff. Really, really cool stuff. And then here is the Urza Saga. So there's that. And this is just another way to find those like the specific cards, like an experimental synthesizer or Chromatic Star. Those are just very good in that manner to find those pieces. We can also use Gamble to kind of find these pieces as well. Just really nice tutor that we'll have to discard at random. We will be doing a fair amount of discards, so a Noxious Revival could be good to put like things back on the top of our library. Balaged Recovery is a nice land that can help do that as well. And a really sweet card is like a Lion's Eye Diamond. Really, what's really cool about the Lion's Eye during like your breach combos is that you can just basically tap this down for mana and then sacrifice it, and then you can basically like reload your hand. You could do like a Jeska's Will. It's pretty crazy stuff, right? You can simply just utilize that mana from the Lion's Eye, and you're empty-handed, but now you can go into like a Jeska's Will or a card such as Wheel of Fortune, which will kind of like just continue building your graveyard in that manner. These are really effective, like the wheels. We have 3 wheels now in red that I kind of like, that I'd like to explore. So Wheel of Fortune would be one of those. Both players must discard their hand and then draw 7 new cards with the incredible value. Like we go, in certain circumstances, you might be able to do this on turn 1 and just keep your action going. Like really have an explosive turn 1 with Meria. You could, more often than not, you can cast Meria on turn 1 on certain setups. So there also could be instances where you're playing a Wheel of Fortune on turn 1 and really going to town with value, and maybe even having a Meria come on with even more value. So there's definitely some turn 1, turn 2 shenanigans that you can kind of get off on. Here's the Wheel of Fortune as well. Kind of debated like how much life I'd want to use, to be very aggressive. In casual games, like usually like anything over like 7 life has worked before, but I'm not sure people understand how the card works totally. But I think like in a very competitive format, I'd be fine with like doing maybe like 17 life. And I'm curious what you all think about that number. The meaning is if I ever wanted to breach out, I could probably spend a little bit more life to do another Wheel of Misfortune and kind of maybe dodge some direct damage spells, like Lightning Bolt and such. I think like spending anything over 20 life could be kind of disastrous for this card in general. So yeah, I thought that would be good. And if we are like the victor of that, we get to wheel, and we're gonna want to wheel. We're gonna want a fresh 7 cards, right? So Snort is also that more expensive one, but it is a wheel, and it will give us 5 fresh cards. Everyone else will get 5 new ones too, if they wanted to. It's given the option. They're given the option, so it's just another way. We need that. I mean, we really exhaust our hand in this particular deck, like every time. So we need like some refuels. Here's Dragon Rage Channeler, and this is just a really nice Surveil card. We'll play our non-creature spells. We can decide to put cards into our graveyard. Really helps for our Underworld Breach kind of stuff and really selection overall. And now we have some really sweet creatures. So here's our Goblin Welder. This will just exchange artifacts from our board from our graveyard just by a tap, and it can also hit opponents' things as well. So that's very cool. Here's the Goblin Engineer, beautiful card here. This will basically entomb any card into any artifact into our graveyard, which is probably the biggest value out of it of all. But it also has a sweet thing. This can find our grinding station for us and really help us open up our lines. It's a very cool tutor card. Very cool goblin. Definitely dodges the Meek Stone. Very cool. Here's the Scrapwork Mutt. Just a very dependable, like, if we have like the aforementioned, like, some of the sweet cards in our graveyard and we kind of want to get into them earlier, we can utilize the mutt to put them from our hand into the graveyard on selection. Another card that does this very well is a Volatile Wanderglyph. So these will simply get tapped. You may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Fantastic. Okay, so we're coming to like the close. So guys, if you enjoyed this content today, please consider a like and subscribe for Blake the Scholar of Magic. And yeah, we've been doing this for a little while now, and it's been a fun experience overall. So I appreciate all guys on this journey. Hope to see you at MagicCon this summer. I'm so excited for the Turtles. Yeah, I'm very excited for the Teenage Mutant Turtles. So, and that reminds me, I have something to show you very soon. So yeah, stick around. Make sure you comment in any way, in any form, and you'll definitely be eligible for a giveaway that we have coming up, and I'll talk about that in a moment. This is just value. So pure value, like a Fomori Vault. If you have 3 or more artifacts, if you tap this and pay 3, you can discard a card and look at the top X cards of library, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Put one of those cards in your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. Just pure value. We love like repeatable pure value. Especially if we're in a long, like kind of a grindy game with our stacks pieces. Here's Mishra's Bauble, and that's just going to give us that really awesome 0 mana and then option to draw from it. Just amazing cards for Meria. The Mishra's Bauble, Urza's Bauble, these things that can be utilized to tap for mana freely. They can draw cards when we want them to do. They can be used to exile cards and impulse. It's just such a versatile thing. Here's the Worldly Tutor, just amazing value. This is just all pure value, just to find a creature card at our disposal. Sylvan Library, just for some absolute card gas. Howling Mind for more card gas. This is a nice one because you can tap it for mana, and then your opponents will be denied the card, and when we untap, we'll get that additional card, and we need that. Very good card for us. The One Ring for just an amazing amount of card value. Going to be really good with the Manifold Key. We can untap this and kind of get more cards out of it. Here's the Disciple of Fraelis, just like a nice little option. Like I said, like for some of our fast mana, we need something like this. Otherwise, we can just maybe sacrifice the Dragon Rage Channeler and get some cards if we really, really need to, or like suit something up with like a Commander's Play, even maybe even take out a Meria, if we need to. But more often than not, this Commander Play is going to be used for protection. Protection is very important, and this is cheap protection for us that's very effective. Similarly, Lava Spur Boots does this very well. Swiftfoot Boots does this as well. They're just artifacts that can be tapped for mana. They're just very strong. Lightning Greaves is perfect. Now, I heard talking about creatures. We don't want to get run over. We want to have some sort of like ways to interact with our opponents. So Hope of Girapur can get in there. We could sacrifice it, and then that opponent will be denied playing non-creature spells that next turn, which is really strong. That's kind of just a feeling thing. You just have to feel it out, if I have this available, I might want to stop that person for the next turn, Here's Deflecting Swat, just like basically a free spell with Meria. We can change the targets for spell or ability. So that's very nice. Here's Tormod's Crypt. This is just another really nice interactive piece. We could just simply play for 0 mana. So we know how important those are for Meria. So just a really nice value engine. Haywire Might to just hit artifacts or enchantments. For basically like with Meria, it just pays for itself. One of my favorite things to do with this card is just simply cast it and then just tap it with Meria and then pay for its own cost and then just like exile something. Like a Great Henge, for instance, in a casual format seems pretty cool. But it can hit enchantments too. It's very versatile. Shatter Skull Smashing for a little bit more of interaction. can blow into that and take out 2 targets. Stump Stomp for a little bit of a, what would you say, bite spell. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. So you don't have to fight it, it just deals the damage from one of your creatures. This is a fight spell, the Bridgeworks Battle. Target creature you control gets 2/2 until end of turn. It fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. These are just lands. Here's the crop rotation. So this is like how we get into like our fast Ancient Tombs. You know, we just like rotate. At the time you play crop rotation, sacrifice a land, search your library for a land card and put that land into play. Just like very easily to like get into like an Ancient Tomb in that, for instance. Another card that's kind of like this is the Explorer map, I believe it's called, or Expedition map. So that's a 1 mana spell too. That will very readily find your like Ancient Tombs as well. You could also find like your strip mines if you want to kind of get into strip mine, and that's why we do pull a Nice Tail Explorer here, which is the most goated card. It is absolutely goated. So yeah, this could like definitely, this could be very aggressive. Like this is when we want to like really, if we're strip mining people and we're getting ahead, you know, we can really kind of keep doing this over and over again, playing it from our graveyard and just getting really oppressive with our opponents and taking out their stuff, being very selective about it. So it seems very cool. Seems like a very cool way to go. Here's Gemstone Caverns. This is just that fast mana, right? If we're not the if we're not the starting player, we can have our pregame action and just like drop out on Gemstone just by simply. Do we have to discard or do we exile? Yeah, we do. We exile a card, any card from our hand, and we can just simply play this outside of our turn, as the game, the pregame actions are opened up. So just a crazy card in general. Cavernous Souls for uncounterability. Giles Cradle. This is a proxy. Can you see the proxies here? Can you guess which ones are proxies? This is one of those. Add green to your mana pool for each creature you control. Holy crap. And then we have our nice little fetch lands here. Beautiful. And then what we can fetch with our fetch lands: Stomping Ground, Commercial District, Taiga, Snow-Covered Forest, and just for funsies, Snow-Covered Forest, Snow-Covered Mountain, Boseiju, Command Tower, Grove of the Burnwells. Just a sweet little duel there. And that's the deck, guys. So you guys want to see this? This is Meria. Let's get her to the top. She deserves her sunshine. I can't believe I built this deck. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. Where is she? Where did she go, guys? We need to do a cool short. Meria, the Scholar of Antiquity. I'm just curious. I'm just kind of curious. Like, I have like basically like half a box of just like cards that, there she is. Like, are just substitutes. Like, I just can't wait to like kind of tinker with this one a little bit, All right. So this is Meria, the Scholar of Antiquity. This is our cEDH deck, and hopefully you see some of the cards in here that you kind of enjoy, but this has been a very fun kind of experience overall. And it's a stacks deck, so it has some very nasty kind of board states where your opponents simply are not like allowed to play the game. Yeah, like Winter Orb, Static Orb, those are definitely like standouts, The value, there's so much value here. It's like the speed, the speed with these cards are just incredible. And the kind of the way they open up like combination cards, like how they work so well with certain cards. These work so well together, like Underworld Breach and Grinding Station. It's kind of obnoxious, right? So overall, I'm kind of curious to see how if I have enough win conditions. First of all, is Altar of Brood is it going to be good enough? Am I going to mill myself out with it? Like, these are the questions I have to answer along the way. I know Aether Flux Reservoir is good. I know Reckless Fireweaver is a good card, but it's also like hard. Like it's not an artifact. It doesn't progress us. Does that make sense? So overall, it's just a really interesting deck, guys. Thanks for joining me today. Of course, I'm not going to leave you guys without showing you the giveaway at 750 subs. We gained like 7 subscribers in the last 3 days. So let's keep the train going, guys. Maybe hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate you if you're new. But this is what we're giving away at 750 subs. So comment on this video, you will be eligible. It's really fun how we give these decks away, and you'll see. Once we hit the 750, we'll do a live and we'll spin the wheel. I'll probably just like wait a little bit and like promote the live so you guys can join up for it. But 750 subs, even the token I'm giving away. It's amazing, right? But this is Taeko, the Taeko deck. There will be more ninjas because I did order some more ninjas, some more kind of niche ninjas. So there's going to be like about three more ninjas in this pile. But what you see is what you get here. This deck is fully ready and like rocking. It's a Voltron-y deck. Taeko is like a tank, and I actually just ordered another box of Jumpstart Foundations to go on a hunt for Taeko and do a video with that, guys, pretty soon. So that'll be fun. I don't know if I will rebuild this deck, and in that manner, these are always kind of like hard to like give up. But it is. Ooh, look at that! It is just what it is. Like this is how we're promoting the channel. Like, and I would love you guys to enjoy a deck such as this. It's so tanky. You will love Taeko. He's just like the ninjas are flying all over the place. He's getting stronger. He's unblockable. This thing is just a nasty one. But that is Sir Taeko. So make sure you like and subscribe and comment. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.